Okay.
Yeah, go.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Overview and Scrutiny Management Committee today, the 28th of February. Start with item 1, introductions and membership of the committee. If I could ask each of the committee members to introduce themselves, please.
Hi, I'm Cass Andrew Cooper. I'm the Chair of the Environment and Scrutiny Panel.
Good morning, I'm Councillor Jo Lawson. I'm Chair of Health and Adult Social Care.
Morning, Councillor Zarina Amin, Chair of Growth and Regeneration.
Thank you very much. And we'll take members of and officers who are presenting will introduce themselves at their agenda items. So before we move on to item 2, I just want to say a few things about the role of scrutiny and also the audit committee and the councillors' roles relating to both. So scrutiny is concerned with the review of policy, its formulation and its implementation. Audit operates to ensure that the governance and risk environment within the council is effective and that financial management is fit for purpose, and each requires its own focus and resources. Because the functions relate to similar areas, there will obviously be matters of common interest where it makes sense to collaborate. For that reason, I welcome any advances from the Corporate Governance and Audit Committee where they seek to do so, and the Chair is very welcome to meet with me and the panel and speak to us and also to attend our meetings. So I hope that will be taken up if necessary so that we can have a good working relationship going forward. Item 2, minutes of the meeting held on the 17th of January 2025. These are submitted for approval as a correct record. Could I have a mover and a second? Oh, I move them. Anybody like to second them? Councillor Lawson, thank you. And a show of hands to approve them. Thank you very much. Just to provide an update for members, the budget and council plan reports were considered by Cabinet on the 11th of February and will be considered by full council next week. The comments from the committee were included in the relevant papers, and also with the council plan some amendments made following that meeting. Item 3, interest. Does any member have any interest to disclose? If you do, please complete the relevant paperwork. Item 4, admission of the public. This is a meeting open to the public and is being webcast live. The recording will also be able to view after the meeting on the council's website. All items will be considered in public session. Item 5, deputations and petitions. There are no deputations or petitions that have been received. Item 6, public question time. No questions have been received. Item 7, people strategy. We have Michelle Moss, HR Manager, Workforce Strategy, and Councillor Hawkins, who are here to present. And I'd like to invite Councillor Hawkins if you'd like to say something initially before we hand over to Michelle.
Thank you, Chair. No particular introduction from myself. I do just want to thank the officers for updating our people strategy as we do pretty regularly ahead as we go into the budget. And I just really want to thank the work that's been put in, and we'll take any questions after the presentation, if that's okay.
Thank you, Councillor Hawkins. Also, Sean Coyle, Head of People Services, was hoping to be here, but unfortunately is unable to do so. So I'll hand over to Michelle.
Morning. Thank you, Councillor Burke. So, as you've said, we're here to share an update with Scrutiny Committee on the Council's People Strategy, to seek feedback on the progress to date, and also plans for the next phase of the People Strategy, whether you've got any thoughts, feedback or suggestions in that space. So as the paper says, our recommendation is to continue with the current governance and arrangements for the People Strategy, and that moving forward we utilise the People Strategy in its current format and continue to review and prioritise our People Strategy priorities within the next phase, which will be phase 4. So I know we've updated Scrutiny a number of times on the People Strategy, but just to give a little bit of an update in terms of the history of the People Strategy. It was launched in 2021 and we've regularly provided updates on progress. We're now in phase 3 of the People Strategy, which includes reviewing whether and part of that phase 3 has included whether that strategy should continue in its current format or whether it should be completely revised. The priorities have changed within the, as the people strategies progressed and through those different phases, taking into account both internal and external factors and also different employment trends which you've seen quite frequently over the last few years. And our people strategies are underpinned by the Council's values and behaviours. Just as a reminder, the vision of the people strategy is that we will achieve our shared outcomes through people with the right skills, values and behaviours working in partnerships in our places. And we've got 4 outcomes within the people strategy which have remained the same throughout. So they are skilled, flexible and engaged people, effective and compassionate leadership, an inclusive employer of choice and healthy and well people. The governance of the people strategy is through our people strategy programme board, and we regularly seek feedback from our steering group, which includes trade unions, networks, managers across the council, and we also work very closely with the I&D strategy, with both strategies being quite complementary in their ambitions. And as I've said, we've reviewed during this phase 3 whether we should continue in the current form, and our policy and partnerships team have supported us with that, with benchmarking and highlighting key themes of people strategies across a number of different sectors, including private sectors and public sectors. And the conclusion of that is that the key themes of people strategies are quite common. And now all of those key themes which are reflected in the report are reflected currently within either the outcomes of our people strategy or our current priorities. So on that basis, our recommendation is to continue with the people strategy in its current form, with those priorities shifting, taking into account internal and external factors. So to provide you with a little bit of an update in terms of phase 3, the priorities of phase 3 were to make sure, as I've said, to make sure we link in with the I&D strategy, make sure that that's aligned. To continue with that modern, flexible workforce, values-driven and supporting by our handbook and our principles of ways of working. Employee engagement and communication, so very much linked to our staff survey. And setting a learning and organisational development plan that aligns with our people. And linking in with that attraction, reward, retention and recognition. As we've said, in terms of our governance, we have reviewed all our priorities as we've gone through phase 3, and we have, as part of that, with those different factors that have influenced particularly some of the financial challenges and some of the capacity restrictions across the council, we've looked at some slight developments in those priorities and a renewed focus on healthy and well people. So a revised approach to sickness reporting and management with a follow-up is going to our executive team within the next month. And then in terms of mandatory training, we a renewed focus on making sure those foundations are really in place, and we are taking recommendations to executive leadership team next week on that. So make sure we've got those really clear, strong foundations to continue to build our learning culture. So the report sets out more detail in terms of the actions that are taking place in phase 3. I don't want to read out the entire report for you, but just to pick out a few key areas to highlight. Workforce planning, so in terms of outcome 1, our highly skilled, flexible and engaged people. Workforce planning is one of our key areas of activity, and that we utilise workforce planning to support us to take a longer term view to some of our recruitment and retention challenges and some of our skills shortages. And that's something that we've built and are embedding out across the council and revising that approach to meet the different needs of the council as time changes. As with any local authority, our recruitment and retention challenges they're no different to any other local authority, and we are actively participating in the Local Government Association recruitment campaign. You may have seen that recently. One of our social workers features within that campaign, so that's really positive and something that we've been able to build on. And also been attending Local Government Association task and finish groups, where we've got those common recruitment and retention challenges, trying to take a sector-wide approach to some of those solutions. So those are some of the key activities that we're working on. Really proud of how we're using apprenticeships effectively. Just during the last 12 months, we've had 86 new start apprenticeships. 69 of those have been to upskill internal employees, and 17 has been new to the council. We do expect those numbers to increase over the next 12 months. particularly wanted to point out or to note some real success in social work. So social work recruitment challenges are very well documented. We have 30 people currently on a social work apprenticeship programme. So those are all internal people who are being supported to achieve a social work qualification through the apprenticeship, which is incredibly positive, and hope is that all of those will remain working for Kirklees Council in social work roles. We've also had some real success in legal. Again, that's an area with some real recruitment and retention challenges, supporting some of our internal people through apprenticeships to qualify as in the legal sphere. So again, really positive use of the apprenticeship levy. In terms of mandatory learning, as I said, we're taking recommendations to ELT next week, and last week we took recommendations around the staff survey with some ideas and suggestions on improving the questions, and also really improving participation, and in particular across our frontline customer-facing workforce, where we've perhaps seen less response recently, and some real commitment from executive leadership team in supporting that participation and taking action from the outcomes of those surveys. In terms of leadership, my conversation, which is the Council's appraisal process, launched with a package of support for managers, and we understand there's been positive feedback from the peer review as part of that, and that's an area we continue to evolve and develop. Just in terms of outcome 3, as an inclusive employer of choice, I think we've talked before about Project Search. That continues to be a positive scheme, with currently 11 interns in Kirklees Council and 7 in the Dewsbury Hospital site, with some real positive outcomes for individuals and their families moving into longer term employment. In terms of our healthy and well people, we have some real success through our employee health care team. Have been 2 years in a row have won the Society of Occupational Medicine Outstanding Occupational Health Initiative Award. So some real external recognitions for some of the activities that are taking place that are supporting our staff, as well as a focus on stress, and also on prevention of sickness absence through an early ability for individuals to self-refer to employee healthcare to support their well-being. So hopefully I've picked out a few of the key examples there, and that the report that you've seen includes a bit more detail in there. We're really happy to hear feedback from members on what's being delivered to date and our current activities, and also any areas that you can support to help shape the next phases of our people strategy. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Michelle. Are there any questions or comments from panel members? Councillor Lawson.
Thank you for the presentation. Regarding the actual New Start apprenticeships, are you saying that it's only 17 that were actually new to becoming a Kirklees employee there this year? When people move to apprenticeship roles, were their posts backfilled?
So when they're new starts to apprentices from outside the council, I suppose we'd call those traditional apprenticeships. So as we know, a lot of roles in entry-level apprenticeships. When we talk about development apprenticeships, it would be where people do an apprenticeship as part of their current job. So it would be that we use the apprenticeships to support development. So for the social work example that I shared, people are already working in the social care field, and they're doing their social work apprenticeship within that, with some of the job training and placements to support it. So they're not new jobs, they're supporting people within their current jobs.
Thank you. If I could just ask one further question, is looking at the appraisal system, the conversations that they have, what percentage of all Kirklees employees have actually had an appraisal within the last year? And are there any particular directorates where there are problems with getting those conversations held?
So it's relatively new, so we don't have the full data set, and it's like I said, it's something that we continue to evolve and develop. I think what we've tried to do when we've launched My Conversation was to have it as an approach that can adapt to different working environments, so very different approach, or can adapt to a very different approach for frontline staff as opposed to more desk-based workers. So what I can do is, I've not had the information to hand today, but I can follow that up afterwards. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Cooper.
Yeah, we live in very difficult times for local government. We have diminishing budgets. Those of us who talk to frontline staff sort of hear the issues that some of them have with morale and the concerns that they have. I'm just wondering how we capture that and how we capture that most effectively, because it will change over time. It'll be different in different directorates, and how that is fed to the cabinet, so they can use that information or know that information, so they can make judgments about what they do and how they adapt to issues with morale.
If I could pick the first bit up, and perhaps Rachel could pick the end bit up. So in terms of capturing that feedback, the proposals that we've put together in terms of the staff survey and ensuring that we've got participation in that, and real focus in that participation in the front line, what we see is that as being kind of, I suppose, a foundation and the building blocks from that. What we included within those proposals were additional measures. So the staff survey is one thing. But once we get those responses, looking at focus groups and how we get further engagement, perhaps in themes that are arising or in particular areas. So that's the first stage of the survey, and then building upon that.
Hi, I'm Rachel Spencer-Henschel, Deputy Chief Exec. I think your point is absolutely valid, and I think one of the challenges we've got is whenever you put any service through a change as a result of a budget saving, you inevitably end up creating quite a lot of dissatisfaction within that group of people, even though in some cases people at the end of it will come out with a role that they're happy with. But obviously during that service change, it's particularly acute in terms of that morale issue. So that's sort of a kind of snapshot in time. I think the rest of the time, as Michelle said, how we get the staff survey to be followed up with things like focus groups is definitely a way to get a little bit more understanding of how people are feeling. And sometimes it is about management. So there'll be individual managers who, you know, we need to target and make sure that they've got the support to be good managers so that we can support our staff in that way. In terms of the Cabinet, Councillor Hawkins, obviously as our portfolio holder, receives regular updates. He also chairs our joint consultative group with the trade unions, which obviously is another way of getting that independent, objective view of what staff are telling them. And we also take into Executive Board regular updates on things like workforce data, and we will obviously take the staff survey as well, so they get a snapshot of what are the biggest issues around sickness absence, what are our, you know, levels of disciplinary activity, grievances, etc. And that gives you that overall flavour of what's actually happening in terms of staff and morale. Councillor Hawkins may want to add something to that, but just to give you some assurance.
Thank you. I'll invite Councillor Hawkins.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Councillor Cook, for the question as well. I think something that we, I think I've spoken about at previous Scrutiny Management Committee meetings, is our employee networks as well. We maintain regular communication with the various employee networks we've got. I think it's something Kirklees Council we do better than any organisation I personally come across, and we do make sure we have that dialogue there. In addition to the dialogue with the trade unions, probably a joint consultative group that Rachel's referenced, and also our regular informal catch-ups as well with the trade unions, even just this past week as well. So you've got not just, you've got the survey, you've got the employee network, and you've got the trade unions, and all of them we are drawing from and listening to when we're factoring into various decisions that go forward.
Thank you, Councillor Hawkins. Councillor Cooper.
Yeah, just hearing about the trade unions, and that's really interesting. I mean, if for instance the trade unions were taken out of the picture in terms of being able to engage with them, what difference would that make? If we didn't have sort of people to engage within the trade unions.
I think that it would be incredibly difficult to reach. The trade union is incredibly helpful to be able to reach across the council and engage, perhaps in some areas where people are less willing to engage with some of our managers and with our executive leadership team. So help us to understand some of those kind of on the ground, what's going on and how we feel. And certainly the trade unions are helpful within our council processes.
Just to add to that, I mean, the employee networks are a really good way of getting that temperature check from the different groups across the council. We also obviously have a number of policies, like whistleblowing policies, where people can obviously raise things that they are concerned about. What we generally tend to do with trade unions is negotiate on kind of our approach to things like the staff handbook was always negotiated with the trade unions, and also in relation to agreeing principles around things like redundancy and our approach to service change. So obviously if we didn't have trade unions, then some organisations don't have that, do they, in some sectors. We'd obviously look to different ways of engaging with our staff to get a consensus, but it's always a bit of a challenge, I think, to get a consensus in an organisation that's so complex.
Thank you. Councillor Amin.
Thank you, Chair. So my question centres around the 3-hour mediation model, which I do commend you for introducing that. And you've delivered 14 positive outcomes. How many have not been positive? And if, for example, the mediation hasn't worked, what would be the next stage? Thank you.
I'm really sorry, Councillor, I don't have the information on that today, but I can follow that up afterwards. We do have a range of other mechanisms, so the newly introduced 3-hour mediation model sits alongside all our existing policies. Other support that's available through employee healthcare, so for example counselling, there is coaching available where it's a bit more individuals can have a look, and there are other approaches as well. So perhaps if I could follow up with the wider approaches and also the statistics that you've asked for afterwards. Thank you.
Just touch on the counselling. So who offers that?
So we have a counselling offer through our employee healthcare team internally. So it's incredibly well utilised and incredibly valuable to the council, and individuals can self-refer to that counselling. We also have a Care First, which is our a 24-hour employee helpline, so that supports counselling being available 24 hours a day. So there's an immediate access, and then we have our in-house counselling provision through employee healthcare, which is incredibly well used and we get good feedback for it.
That's really positive. Thank you.
Can I just make the point that it's also available to elected members as well? So elected members can use any of our employee healthcare services as well. So just to reinforce that message, it is open to members.
Thank you. Councillor Hawkins.
Rachel just stole my thunder there. That's exactly what I was going to say about elected members. And I do, even if you're not going there to access the services, I would really encourage you to go and visit the site that we've got as well for our employee healthcare team, because as I say, it's similar to the employer networks. Sound a bit like broken record here. It's something that in many organisations I've never seen anything as comprehensive as what we offer in terms of a healthcare team to our employees. It really is top rate, and I recommend you going along there and speaking to the staff. I think it's a very useful experience to see just how much is on offer for our staff.
Thank you, Councillor Hawkins. We may very well take up that offer. I think it would be very worthwhile. Councillor Bolt.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. I wasn't anticipating speaking on this, but hearing about the employee networks just reminds me when I was Cabinet member, and probably several years ago, we used to have a very active employee network called the Kirklees Bicycle User Group, which was very good for taking the temperature and getting feedback from our own staff about how easy it was to get around the district, how people could commute to work. I mean, nowadays that would be called an active travel network. So looking at today, if I'd have tried to cycle into this meeting, Chair, since they closed the car park at Albert Street, there's no cycle parking near the town hall. So where would staff and others park cycles if we were coming to an event at the town hall? You know, I think if you go into Civic 3, I don't think, unlike our neighbours in Leeds, who are in Merrion House, you've got cycle parking, you've got facilities for people to get changed. I don't think we have anything like that. So we should be leading with that. If we're talking about valuing our employees, we should be acting as an exemplar to other partners in how we encourage active travel in this district.
Thank you, Councillor Ball. I wasn't aware of that network, so I think what we try to say with our staff networks is we ask the staff, so if they want to come coalesce around a particular agenda, then we would obviously support that. So that's why we have a mental wellbeing network and a green employee network, which isn't necessarily about a protected characteristic, but it's because staff wanted that. On the active travel point, we've recently done an active travel survey for all staff to try and understand some of the barriers around what's stopping people cycling or walking more, and facilities is definitely something that they've flagged. So it's inconsistency, particularly across all our buildings, rather than it being that there's none available, it's just not consistent. So we'll be working on the feedback from that survey to try and improve things so that staff are able to travel more actively.
Pleased to hear that, Chair, and I extend an invitation to either Cabinet member or officers. Going back now to when one of the senior directors started in post, which is probably about 2021, he spent half a day cycling around the district. Unfortunately, the issues that we highlighted to him have not been resolved yet. Road safety issues, some simple things. So we need not only to put words, we need actions. There are many officers that have active travel in the titles, but again, we need to understand that it's not just good having somebody in office. They need to be able to demonstrate to people that they can actually cycle and walk to work.
Thank you, Councillor Bolt. Councillor Hawkins.
Very happy to take Councillor Bolt up on that offer. I think we should arrange 2 appointments, though. One where he can teach me how to ride a bike, and then another where we can ride around and see the routes for themselves as well. But very happy to take you up on that, Martin.
Thank you, Councillor Hawkins. Any other questions or comments? Can I just ask, with regards to the workforce and the gaps in recruitment, what service areas have the biggest gaps? Where is the biggest need for recruitment and retention?
Apologies. The biggest challenge areas, again, common across majority of local authorities, are in particular in professional areas. And I would say that's probably areas where we have most direct competition with private sector. So, as I mentioned, legal is a key area. Some of the areas that are in particularly high demand. So, professional areas in what described as the built environment, professional roles there, and as again very well documented, social work and social care are particular challenges, but none of those are unique to Kirklees.
I suppose we could add many others to those, planning, highways, where that impacts on the service and on what we can do to try and work with residents and to achieve our aims and goals. What are we doing to try and rectify that? Are we doing anything differently from other local authorities, or learning from them or from previous feedback?
Absolutely. So, as I mentioned, learning from other local authorities, we're actively participating in the National Local Government Association task and finish groups on those kind of hard to fill areas. Workforce planning is one of our key solutions or potential, or providing us with solutions around some of our longer term challenges. So, as I've described, utilising apprenticeships to support social work. And we're also taking, so there's a longer term view. Appreciate that doesn't solve some of the immediate pressures. So in terms of immediate pressures, we're refocusing or putting a lot of focus through our recruitment activities. So recently investing quite significantly in more social media activity, particularly around some of those professional ones, and linking into other campaigns. So the local government campaign, to trying to learn absolutely everything that we possibly can from other local authorities and anything that anybody else is doing, and just trying to do the very best that we possibly can. But also, so we've got the immediate term, but also making sure we don't lose sight of the long term to grow our own into lots of those roles.
It's also just worth saying that obviously we've had a publicised recruitment freeze, which obviously we've been maintaining given the budget situation. So just to give some reassurance, there are a number of roles that don't need to obviously go through the formal processes because we know that there are such gaps. So, you know, there are a list of roles that we will always go out to recruit to because we know that the market is challenging. So we try and use our approach to vacancy management in a way that ensures we don't have compulsory redundancy if possible, but also that we are maximising getting those people that we know we have gaps around into the organisation.
Thank you for that. Are there sufficient resources allocated to meet the strategy's objectives, especially considering the high demand for people services and the Council's capacity for change?
I think that's perhaps where we've tried to take a flexible approach with the people strategy, so with the outcomes remaining the same, but the priorities and activities that sit behind it do flex and change, taking it into account some of those resource pressures and also the capacity pressures across the council. So it's something that we are able to flex. It'd be great if we had loads more resources, but we are able to flex based on the resources that we have available at the time. We do, through our engagement with our steering groups, seek to get support from across the council as well.
Okay. Are there any other questions or comments from panel members? No? Okay, thank you. I think there are a lot of positives in there. You've mentioned about apprenticeships and filling those gaps, especially around social work. Project Search in there is a really, really good initiative. I've been able to see firsthand how they work and how they engage with people to achieve those outcomes. So there's a lot of positives in there. It is very challenging, as you said, and not just unique to here as well. So thank you for the presentation. Thank you. Moving on to item 8, the tourism strategy. We've got Richard Smith, Creative Development Manager, Culture and Visitor Economy, will present a report in respect of the development of the tourism strategy. And we've also got Adele Poppleton, Service Director, who is here as well.
It's working now. Good morning, everyone. I'm just going to introduce this. The authority's not had a tourism strategy or visitor economy strategy or destination management plan, whatever you want to call it, for several years. This particular strategy, we have been to various scrutiny committees in the past. It's being developed as a trio of strategies, along with the heritage strategy, which has now been approved by Cabinet last year. And we're in the process of developing the cultural strategy, and then this is the third of the strategies, the tourism strategy. When we came previously, we talked about the emerging themes. We have now reached a position where we have a draft strategy that is ready to go out for consultation to get feedback from our communities, and particularly the tourism sector, about what we're proposing moving forward. One of the things I'm going to say is this strategy might not be as ambitious as you would like, but that is because we're being realistic about the resources available to us. We're also ensuring that this is in line with the West Yorkshire Destination Management Plan, which has been produced with our partners and the other West Yorkshire authorities and with the combined authority as part of the West Yorkshire Local Visitor Economy Partnership, or LVEP. So I'm going to leave it there. I'm going to pass over to Richard, because Richard has led the production and has done a great job in editing the strategy, which was the first draft was produced by a consultancy, Fable. Richard's managed to put it into a much more concise form. Over to you.
Thank you very much, Adele. If you could just give me a moment, I'm going to try and bring up a presentation on screen as well, just to aid the discussion. Okay. So, as Adele's already mentioned, there's going to be a brief overview here through the presentation of activity to date. I'll touch a little on tourism itself. We'll look at some of the highlights of the draft strategy, and then we'll look at the consultation plan. So there may be a couple of moments where I repeat some things Adele said, but that's not necessarily an issue, I don't think. So, in terms of the activity to date summary, as outlined in the report document, this session builds on the early engagement that we had and testing of themes of the Scrutiny Committee. Since that early session, work has been undertaken to understand our visitor motivations and opportunities for growth. And the development of the tourism strategy to date has involved drawing on national research and trends and a period of consultation with target audiences. An outline document from this work was tested through our internal flight path, and then we've been moving on to consultation after approval. And as you've seen in the appendices to the committee report document, there is now a draft strategy to take forward to public consultation. So in terms of a sense of why this work matters, and I should say the terms tourism and visitor economy are interchangeable here to some extent. The visitor economy is the environment where residents, visitors, businesses and service providers interact. It's the infrastructure and services that support visitors and the elements that attract visitors and other stakeholders to our place. Our work in this area and the strategy is important to a range of businesses of different scales to enhance Kirklees' image and profile, not just as a place to visit, but a place to live, study and bring your business to, whilst enhancing the quality of life for our residents. Tourism work will support a wide range of facilities and help to animate our town centres and drive footfall. And of course, positive economic impact is always welcome, but the social impact from tourism activity is very strong as well, creating a sense of place and pride amongst our residents and giving confidence in their district. This strategy aims to complement and work across Kirklees to engage visitors and aligns with the heritage and developing cultural strategy that have just been mentioned, and will help to deliver on council partnership strategies and the corporate plan. So where are we now? This is a section that appears in the draft strategy, and the work to date, looking at national trends and work with audiences, has led to some key motivators for visiting the district. People say they come to Kirklees to visit friends, family and relatives. They're interested in history and the industrial heritage of Kirklees, as well as its cultural events. People like walking holidays here with a food theme, and they have an interest in villages and valley scenery, so that rural aspect of Kirklees with a specific interest in our canal. And finally, screen tourism has been identified as an inspiration for visiting Kirklees and its television and film productions. So this research was supported with the identification of 6 areas of strength for Kirklees to prioritise, which are what appear on the slide at the moment. As outlined in the draft document, we've gone on to say how we'll begin to develop those strengths. So in terms of music and culture, we'll look to build on a year of music and look at how we might bring further music and culture events to Kirklees. We'll work with our West Yorkshire partners to develop opportunities in the region beyond the years of culture and beyond Bradford 2025. And we think that tourism should be informing and promoting the regeneration and development schemes here in Kirklees, particularly our cultural heart. From a heritage perspective, we're fortunate to have a new heritage strategy that we can get behind, but also this is about promoting the assets of the district and helping visitors to discover Kirklees through its heritage. Food and drink, we would love to support festivals and highlight restaurants and cafes and the great food experiences you can have in the district, and then go on to promote those places for awards and different events. And we'd also like to raise the profile and quality of employment in the hospitality and tourism sector here in the district. From a landscape and wellbeing perspective, one of our real strengths here in Kirklees, we'd like to look at developing routes across the landscape and helping visitors to explore the district. We'd like to position Kirklees as a destination for active holidays. And we'd like to capitalise on that natural scenery to think about health and wellbeing holidays and breaks. Screen tourism, as you might guess, is going to be an area where we're looking to promote those classic film and contemporary screen locations to inspire travel. We'd love to promote film festivals and create itineraries for people visiting so they understand how to explore the district and think about different sites, such as Oakwell, that's featured on the slide, and turn single-day visits maybe into multi-day trips. And we'd also look to attract new productions and new filming to the district with West Yorkshire colleagues. From a sport perspective in the draft strategy, we'd like to encourage sport enthusiasts again to not just visit for the day, but to come for extended stays. And we'd look to produce profiles for different sports to help promote them in their own right. To underpin and guide the work I've just mentioned, we've gone further to look at tourism trends. So through the research done to date, we've identified there's different types of tourism trend that will support some of the areas that we've been looking at. It's a fairly self-explanatory in name, but shorter breaks more often is one area. Rural retreats, so again thinking about the amazing green spaces we have here in Kirklees. Wellbeing holidays, fluid itinerary travel, which is where people go to a place not quite sure what they're going to find, but they know they'll find something great. Authenticity, which is rooted in heritage. Tech everywhere is much more about how as a society we expect to be able to find information online and maybe book as well. And then screen tourism we've already covered. So this will inform how we position our offer and the different types of trends we start to think about. And then underneath that, we've defined some market segments via the Visit Britain market segments. Again, these have longer explanations underneath them, but just to list them quickly. We have green explorers and culture buffs, experience seekers, hyperlocal sightseers and explorers, accessible tourism, and multi-generational family tourism. And so the draft strategy then goes on after these outline approaches and areas of work to identify key partners across the industry, but makes more specific reference to the West Yorkshire Local Visitor Economy Partnership, which has already been mentioned by Adele. So again, just to reiterate, the West Yorkshire Local Visitor Economy Partnership, or LVEP, forms part of Visit England's national portfolio of LVEPs. They're recognised as the official body for a region's visitor economy, and the West Yorkshire LVEP aims to provide a strong local leadership and governance. It works through collaboration with the other local authorities in West Yorkshire and the combined authority, and we think will create a very powerful partnership in this area. And the West Yorkshire Destination Management Plan that is featured on screen there sets out our ambition as a region to increase awareness and appeal for the region as a destination, to develop our product and offer and its places, and to collaborate to grow the considerable visitor economy. Importantly, the plan identifies that partnership will be key to delivery, and it will strengthen partnerships at a national level with organisations such as Visit England and Visit Britain. And the LVEP will form the basis of a stronger regional working relationship between the local authorities and combined authority, again forming the basis for delivery of many of the actions in the plan. This is really excellent for the Kirklees strategy, as the West Yorkshire Destination Management Plan helps to align the Kirklees strategy with regional and national priorities and facilitates funding and partnerships. It enhances our visibility, it amplifies our work and brings new expertise and approaches. And the visitor economy benefits in our strategy are reinforced through the Destination Management Plan. And many of the strengths and priority areas identified for Kirklees are mirrored back through the DMP as well, the Destination Management Plan. So the Kirklees strategy is mutually beneficial, and importantly, the partnerships and goals at a local level to meet local priorities will naturally feed back into the regional conversation. The West Yorkshire Destination Management Plan situates Kirklees in a coordinated piece of work that aims to establish a more coherent offer that will see visitors travelling between districts and looks to understand how activity in one district can have a positive impact on another. Now, work is underway to deliver on the Destination Management Plan already, and I think having our own underlying strategy is vital to know our priorities and meet the Kirklees aims. So again, another section in our plan is how will we get there. So this is turning the information I've already mentioned into action, and the aims and actions in this section of the draft strategy are born out of our identified priority areas and opportunities. Our aims and actions will understandably develop over time and will support a tourism vision, which is broken down on screen there, but by sharing the unique stories of Kirklees people and places, delivering exceptional quality and making every visitor feel at home, we'll achieve an enhanced visitor experience, growth in visitors and economic impact, and sustainable development. And then in the draft strategy underneath this, we've broken it down further, which I'll touch on now. To achieve this, we'll define our offer, which is vitally important, and the national positioning of Kirklees. We'll look to encourage more visitors to the district and inspire them to stay longer. We'll look to reduce seasonality and spread the benefit of tourism across the district. We'll look to increase Kirklees community-based tourism and encourage the people of Kirklees to explore their local area and businesses. We'll raise awareness of the significance of tourism, highlighting its economic and cultural value, and ensure that Kirklees is considered within that broader Yorkshire experience. As you go further into the document, there are more specific aims and actions that sit beneath these that I feel are appropriate and ambitious and manageable, but make clear reference to the LVEP delivery and amplify the outcomes of the Kirklees strategy. Now, as suggested by this image, it's about people understanding who we are and where we are. By defining our offer and place, we'll better understand how to describe the district to others, as well as understanding ourselves better through the process.
Richard, sorry, may I just interrupt you? Because I don't know how many slides you had, and people may lose sight of many slides you've had along the way. You've just mentioned the map.
Yes.
This is who we are. I'm just curious as to how the towns and villages on there were chosen to represent Kirklees.
So this
Why
was
some were not.
Yeah, sorry. This was originally developed through the original research work. So we've carried this through from the original document that went through the flight path to Executive Board. So we've recreated it following conversations and portfolio briefings as well to make sure that it carries through to locate the place. This is all up for conversation and consideration. It was a starting point.
I don't want to be parochial about this, but Huddersfield North is missing a bit of a scene there around Lindley and not heading up towards the M62 and that. So there's other areas on there as well that need. Marsh, yeah.
Thank you, Chair. While the map's on the screen, one of the points that I'd picked up in the document, Richard, and the map will help us to illustrate it. On page 2, it says that we're bordered by M62 to the north and the M1 to the east. Where on that map does the M1 actually touch the border of Kirklees?
So we've not included that information at the moment, simply to keep the map simple. But these are things that we can absolutely look to introduce. It's making a map that is usable within a document and that isn't overcomplicated, but absolutely this is the feedback that we need at this stage.
If I could help, Chair, the answer is it doesn't. There is nowhere that the M1 touches Kirklees.
Thank you, Councillor Bolt. So I'm not going to stop and I'm going to let you move on. I would just say another thing where we're talking about West Yorkshire, we're talking about Bradford, Leeds, Wakefield, Calderdale, Kirklees. For anybody else as a place to visit won't know, or possibly wouldn't know, where Huddersfield is, or is that involved in this? So I'm just thinking, trying to make it easier for people to understand and know and recognise who we are, where we are.
Absolutely.
I'll let you continue, sorry.
Thank you. I think I might have lost the presentation there, but that's fine. That's okay. I think technology is letting me down here, unfortunately.
Okay, Richard's still sharing on his screen, but it's been lost from up there. Stop sharing and then go back to share.
I've lost my cursor as well. My computer may have crashed.
Oh, you disappeared from the meeting.
So I think my computer's crashed. Right. I can carry on without if that's okay. I can share. So apologies, technology lets us down. However, so again, it will be better placed to describe who we are and where we are, which was a great conversation to have a moment ago. And I was about to follow up by saying this piece of work is the start of a journey from our perspective. It's about guiding our work in this area over the coming few years when we can then review and check our path again. So the next slide would have shown the cover of the document for the public consultation. And we have most elements in place now to start taking the draft document forward to public consultation. I was hoping also to take you to a draft page, but however, importantly, the current cover and potentially that map, if we intend to use it at this stage following that feedback, is largely to keep the document simple and text-based to allow people to focus on the content and what's being said rather than including too much detail at this stage. Also, within the slide, I think I should probably point this out, it's not on the screen to see it now, Through the public consultation, we're asking people to effectively read the draft strategy, understand it and digest it. We're welcoming feedback, which can be submitted in a number of ways, but there will be a specific survey created for that. And we'll be creating some consultation sessions where people can join us in person to understand that strategy better. Obviously, following the feedback and from sessions like this as well, the document will be further refined, but will be taken forward through the various approval processes at that stage. But importantly, we want to understand how residents and other respondents prioritise those areas of strength and to the extent at which they agree with what's been put into that document. So I think that actually brought me roughly to the end of the presentation. You just don't get the really nice looking images that went with it as a tourism strategy towards the end. But we'd welcome any questions and feedback at this stage.
Thank you, Richard. Again, apologise if I inadvertently contributed to the crashing of your computer. And I'm sure the other images were absolutely amazing. So thank you for that. Do we have any questions or comments from panel members? Councillor Cooper.
It's really about the focus, really. I mean, I think one of the issues I think we have in Kirklees is that Kirklees as a place doesn't really exist. It's a boundary. It's a boundary with which a municipal council operates. So are we promoting Kirklees, which I think we've got a bit of a problem with, or is it that we're promoting destinations within this boundary that is Kirklees? And so there's it's just whether we go down in some ways a blind alley trying to promote a boundary, or whether we have a strategy which is about the communities and the towns and the places within it. I'm just trying to tease out, how we approach that issue. And the fact that Kirklees as a place is in Calderdale.
Absolutely. At the moment, we're tackling that kind of thorny conundrum, and that's why we're saying part of this process is about understanding ourselves and defining what the offer is, because I think we've come to a similar conclusion through the work we've done with other people, some of the consultation. People don't understand necessarily where Kirklees is if you promote it as a place. So it also connects as well with the developing cultural strategy, which is looking at a place-based approach and thinking about local delivery plans. So it's about all of this work coming together to understand how we best want to promote ourselves. So it's a great point.
Can I come in? I think that's why you see a theme-based approach, because depending on the particular theme will depend then on which of the towns and villages that we're going to promote within that. So we're often going to say Kirklees, but it won't be the key thing. And also, as we work with our partners in West Yorkshire, then it's basically promoting West Yorkshire. We're also working on a regional level with the other LVEPs. So through Yorkshire Leaders, we're looking at promoting Yorkshire and what the brand for Yorkshire is. So it will depend on the circumstance as to what exactly is being promoted and whether it's the village, or we do try the district because that is appropriate at that moment in time.
So yeah, when I go to other parts of the country, I usually open with the joke, which is people often ask me where in Scotland is Kirklees. Please feel free to use it. Looking around the area. I mean, I've just looked at Holmfirth. I thought, visit Holmfirth. I looked on the web and I thought, right, visit Holmfirth. And I live quite close to Holmfirth, and I'm now looking at an organisation called Holmfirth Info. I have no idea who they are. I was in Holmfirth last night having a beer or two or three. And so I look at that and I think this is an area I know quite well, but I don't know who the partner is. Is it the parish council? Is it the traders? Is it all of those? And so it's less the regional stuff that I'm interested in and more in sort of like how do we make it relevant to those local players, those local organisations, because to be quite honest, they're probably better at doing the job than us, but there'll be other people in other areas. Lindley or wherever, where you think who are we engaging with there, and how do we promote that, and how do we find the gaps, if you like, where we could play a more useful role in developing those areas and those communities?
I think you make a really valid point there. I always believe the role of the local authority is to intervene where there are gaps and not to duplicate where there is activity within a community. The Home Firth group you refer to is a group of really interested residents that are passionate about Home Firth, that have come together because there was a gap. And that is because we haven't done anything in terms of tourism and visitor economy for many years. What we want to do is to be able to work with those communities, but to actually find a way of bringing all of that activity together, because it's so much stronger when there's a critical mass. We don't want to duplicate what the people of Home Firth are doing, but if we can somehow ensure the conditions are right that allows them to be able to get on with what they want to get on with, we will do that, and we will enhance, because we do have strength in things like our marketing, being part of the bigger picture, etc. So that's the kind of approach. And Richard referred to the kind of local delivery plans, and that is the aim, that once the 3 strategies have been approved, we start to work on that local level, because we recognise what's important to the people of Home Firth is very different to what's important to the people of the Spen Valley, and also our heritage around the district and what visitors are interested in could be quite different. So for the Spen Valley, there's a really strong connection with the Brontes, for instance. Are we better, if that is important to the people of the Spen Valley and they think that's a way to attract visitors to their area, then we will prioritise that. But you can see it's not about working with the rest of the Kirklees on that theme. It's going to be working with Bradfords and others to attract the people that are interested in the Brontes.
Okay, I think what is part of, it's not a problem. I think what's great is that we have so many areas, we have so many points of interest in all of the towns and villages all around Kirklees. And I agree with Councillor Cooper, and that's what I alluded to at the beginning when I said through this regional approach of we are Kirklees doesn't really help us. It only creates a little bit more confusion. For example, if people want to do more and more about Brontes or whatever it might be, Kirklees doesn't really help with that. If you go anywhere outside of here, people certainly won't know. And we go to conferences anywhere in the country, you've always got to tell them exactly where you are and say, never mind that, this is where I am. So I think there is a task around that, trying to achieve that. So you spoke about heritage, so I'd be interested to know how we're working with Heritage Open Days. I know a lot of work takes place and support with them. I know groups have taken on what the council once used to do around Heritage Open Days and open up buildings and volunteering to ensure that these historic buildings in our towns and communities and our own wards that we represent are opened up to the public. And we're fortunate to have so many, which is absolutely fantastic. So just on the heritage side of things is how we will work collaboratively with the Heritage Open Days to secure that we do that.
In the first instance, we'd be coordinating with our museums and galleries colleagues as custodians of the heritage strategy to make sure that's all coordinated fully. From a tourism strategy perspective, this is the build and the local level build of then understanding the assets that are out there so we can get behind them and promote them and help people understand what's there and what can be experienced.
And added to that, it's a really good example you use, because we are working with them at the moment. We don't try to control them. We enable the volunteers that are behind it to do what they want to do, but they need a little bit of extra support, and we have the power in our comms. So we do help to give that extra push to make residents aware of the Heritage Open Days and supplement, I guess that's the word, supplement what the volunteers are doing.
Yeah, because I certainly think from a tourism point of view, everything that's open during the Heritage weekend should certainly be part of or included within any tourism offer. When you see the queues of people that visit these attractions that are not normally open to the public, it's absolutely fantastic. And as you say, I volunteer on Heritage Open weekends, and there's lots of volunteers. So it's just a little bit of support, and you say communication. Some of them don't need to be advertised that much, they see it's open and they're there and there's queues. So I think, again, I say we're fortunate in what we have around the district. Councillor Bolt.
Thank you, Chair. I was interested to read this document, and there's a lot in it, which is why I'm here to try and help the consultation. I'm pleased that Andrew's already pointed out that Kirklees as a place is in Calderdale, and that's one of the biggest challenges we've always faced, going back to 73 when the name was pulled out of a hat against 3 or 4 others. The place in Kirklees is something I've had experience of because 20 years ago now nearly, we won an international award for our greenways, and the European Greenways Award was judged and presented in Madrid. We were told we had a fantastic technical presentation, but they couldn't find where Kirklees was. And that's something which runs through to today, looking through transport for the north, the visitor economy and transport strategy for the north of England. There's a nice map, the north's main visitor economy assets. Even Huddersfield doesn't exist on the map. It's this, I mean, it's a hackneyed phrase here to try and get places put onto the map, but if our major town doesn't exist, what have the rest of us got? And going through the document, placing Kirklees, again, like you, Chair, we won't be parochial, but we're talking about rail links. It mentions Huddersfield and Dewsbury. It mentions that London King's Cross is just over 2 hours away, but it must really stick in the craw of people in Huddersfield that they don't mention that rail link is from Mirfield. If it was from Huddersfield or Dewsbury, they'd be singing it from the hilltops, they'd be benefiting from it. But, because it's Mirfield, we get downplayed again. We don't just want a strategy that's for Huddersfield and Dewsbury. This strategy should be for the many, not just the 2. But, again, the naming. I've had experience organising cycling events in the area and organised mass participation rides, which brought 300 or 400 people. We had to rename it from the Kirklees Cycle Sportive because it had no identity. And that's a potential to attract people and spend money. You mentioned that music festivals and culture, and I'm sure, Chair, your colleagues would think it remiss of us if we didn't mention the highly successful Cleckheaton Folk Festival, how that now struggles because of issues that this council has done with not supporting them and not making sure that Cleckheaton Town Hall is fit for purpose. We've had mention of the Bronte heritage and tourism potential, and my colleagues in Liverton and Jugumsel would want me to mention that this council just got rid of the Red House, which has very strong links to Brontes. Music festivals and culture. Yes, we've got a lot to be proud of, so let's look at some of the things that particularly North Kirklees has done. Batley is internationally renowned for the work that it did with music and culture for many years with Batley Variety Club. We've had composers and musicians, John Kerwin from Heckmondwike, the creator and developer of the Tonic Solfaing music system. A friend of mine, Sammy King, wrote the much famous Penny Arcade for Roy Orbison. So let's look at the people who we can use as ambassadors. Again, I've highlighted that in mapping and that we need accuracy. We talk about heritage. Kirklees has a number of heritage assets. It doesn't mention the Tolson Museum, but it does mention the National Coal Mining Museum, which last time I checked, and I've just had a look on Google, is in Wakefield. So, we've got plenty in Kirklees. Yes, it is, Adele. I've just looked on Google, and the Wakefield boundary sign is just up the road towards Grangemore. There might be a pit shaft or a pit tunnel that comes into Kirklees, but the actual building is in Wakefield.
Can I just come in there? Because we are working with the Coal Mining Museum at the moment. Half of the Coal Mining Museum now lies in Kirklees. So the new tunnel attraction that has opened is in Kirklees, where the ponies are kept is in Kirklees, and underground, most of that is in Kirklees. So we are talking to them about they are both a Wakefield and a Kirklees attraction, and we can use that to promote our area.
Adele, thank you for clarifying. I think when I did the tour many, many years ago, I think I did enter the Kirklees side when I was underground. So yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Chair. Like you probably when you were mayor, you went round and I did, but I know the entrance and that, and you go through signs saying Wakefield. So we look at that. It's develop Kirklees as a destination for active holidays, again, this refers to what we've said before about active travel. There's nothing in here that highlights one of the most sustainable forms of transport. You know, we talk about sport. The sport is well regarded in the sporting world. If only we had a stadium that was named the Kirklees Stadium. That was the original concept, but then they sold out to naming rights. So as we're now talking about passing the stadium over to others and potentially relinquishing or foregoing some of the money that we've underwritten, perhaps we should be saying as part of that deal that the stadium should be called the Kirklees Stadium. Then whenever there is an event on there and commentators talk about it, they would mention us. Talking of sport, it's well regarded for rugby. If only we had a museum that commemorated the founding of the Rugby League in Huddersfield. There used to be one in the George Hotel. We talk about sport, and it mentions golf. I'd like somebody to tell me, do we still have a municipal 18-hole golf course in the area, and will that survive to the future? Or was part of that, when the land was being sold off for development, to cut it down to a 9-hole? The council has, over many years, closed down the what we call par 3 or pitch and putt courses, where people could play relatively cheaply. But, Chair, it would be remiss of me if I didn't mention the abject failure in talking of sporting heritage to mention something for which this area has had worldwide recognition. The biggest audience, the biggest free-to-view audience, the biggest free-to-watch audience on the ground was the Tour de France, which came through this area 10 years ago, 2014. And the exponents of cycling in this area, Brian and Des Robinson from Murfield, 1952 Olympics, Tour of Britain, Tour de France, and many others. Brian's daughter, Louise Robinson, 2000 Olympics. Albert Hitchin from Murfield won many professional races. And so on. Ed Clancy, who's now, strangely enough, the active travel commissioner for South Yorkshire, lives in this area, Olympian and world champion. We are worldwide renowned and successful at cycling. That translates into cycle tourism. We haven't capitalised on the benefits and the investment that we made in the Tour of France and Tour of Yorkshire. The Tour of Yorkshire economic study shows how much money there is potentially to come back to this. The economic benefit of the Tour of Yorkshire 2018 alone was 98 mil. We mentioned Home Firth and other places. People like myself who go out for a day cycling. So we've got many successful cycling clubs, Ravensthorpe, Home Valley and others. One survey by the organisation formerly known as the Cyclist Touring Club, day visitors, so somebody who goes out for a ride with their mates on a day, spend on average £15 a person. And you look at many cafes in Home Firth, Marsden and other areas. You know, if this council had invested and promoted cycle tourism, we didn't take advantage of the brown signs showing the route of the Grand Depart in 2014. Cycle tourism and that event is not just the immediate impact of when it's on telly. People see somewhere and come back for holidays and visits. And that £15 for a day or for an overnight trip, you know, you're talking now probably £50 or £60 if people are staying in a bed and breakfast. Nothing in this mentions something else that's of key relevance to this area, the Pennine Way. It's the 60th anniversary of the opening of the Pennine Way this April. We should be maximising on that as it goes through over Blackmore, Marsden and other areas. You know, it's a key issue and people can come time and time again to look at that. Yeah, we should be looking, again, heritage. This area has a proud heritage. You know, we've talked about employee networks. So let's look at what this area has got historically and heritage-wise. It had the biggest ever open-air political rally in Hartshead. If Dave Shade was here, he'd wax lyrical about that the Chartists met there with nearly 250,000 people on Peep Green Lane. The whole of Kirklees has got historic and heritage links to the Luddites, from Milnes Bridge, where some of the mill owners and others were, across to Rawfolds in Cleckheaton. But famously, no apologies for being parochial, the Dumb Steeple in Murfield is known as a congregating place. We have in Roberttown the Star Inn, which was where the militia were based and where Luddites and protesters were captured, taken and tortured. And that is a famous heritage about that. So let's recognise those things that we have, Chair. We also need to look at what we can do to look at screen tourism. Again, we are fortunate to have many people, and a couple of them, thankfully, are still around that we could use as ambassadors. Former Doctor Who Jodie Whittaker from Skelmanthorpe, James Mason and Gordon Kay from Huddersfield. And what was that chap called from Murfield? Oh, Patrick Stewart. And Huddersfield often likes to claim him, say Huddersfield's Patrick Stewart, but he was actually born and brought up in Murfield. So we've got things there, screen tourism. It's making money for us year on year, and we should be looking at that. I remember at one time, many areas have offices and departments set up to capitalise on that and to invite people in, because it's not just the actual impact. Look how much people are getting from Happy Valley. So screen tourism is something we should use. Again, interesting phraseology. One of the things that it says on page 7 is it's talking from the following about working with industry partners. Near neighbours and distant cousins. Near neighbours refers to out-of-county places such as Manchester, Liverpool and the Peak District, as well as London and Scotland. Distant cousins refers to in-county areas such as Sheffield, York and Doncaster. I'd have thought Sheffield, York and Doncaster were more like near neighbours, and places like Scotland were distant cousins. But it's strange phraseology that we term at. We need to. It's going out for consultation. I hope that we can engage with people and get it well, because we talk about measuring success on the last page. In truth, the only meaningful performance indicator of tourism is how much it's contributing to our local economy. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Bold, for your contributions and demonstrating and showing in how wonderful a place we live in. Anybody like to come back on that? Richard?
Well, thank you for the comments to begin with. A lot of the things you mentioned have come up through the research and things that have been happening in the background. And I think the attempt was to take through a document that felt simple and manageable for people to be able to digest in the first instance. Then we can unpack a lot of the detail behind it. Some of the other things you mentioned as well are sentiments that have come through the original research and some of those original kind of documents that were then taken through and were then simplified back. So in terms of locating the place, I think again we can review that, but it was looking at how do we make Kirklees, and again conversation accepted, but it might not be that we look at Kirklees directly, but how do we locate that as a national interest, as well as looking at sort of the surrounding area and considering the locality as well. I'd love to continue the conversation around some of the detail that you've been mentioning around some of the places we could look to unpack, some of the people we could look to partner with. And again, some of the things you mentioned, I think as well, would fit very well with the heritage strategy discussions, which are starting to develop to a point of having their own delivery plans as well. But thank you very much for the comments.
Thank you. Are there any other questions or comments? If we can just add, I think looking for information, looking for knowledge about people and places, there are obviously the 23 wards in Kirklees. A lot of the elected members, I'm sure, would like to be able to contribute and be able to speak about what happens in their areas, the regular events that take place every year that are very well supported, that bring people in. If I speak about Linley, we have a running event there every year that's been going for over 10 years. You're bringing hundreds of people into an area who then often, many of them will be visiting family. They'll stay in the local area, stimulating the local economy, spending money. And it becomes a regular event. Same in Dewsbury 10K. Hundreds, thousands of people come visiting Dewsbury, taking part in an event, and then we'll look for something to do. If I'm going somewhere to do a run somewhere else in the country, I will look to see what's happening, see what's there, and see is it worth staying the night. And then that works. So I think there's a lot more we can do with these kind of events. And there's so many regular carnivals, fetes, galas that take place where people come and visit and stay and would like to do a lot more. And there's so much on offer. I think we've got a great opportunity to do an awful lot more, which I think we're really, really lucky. So a lot of the issues of the problems are really benefits that we have of being able to do an awful lot more than we are working with what we have and having the infrastructure and the heritage that we have So I think elected members could add a lot to that. I think about their own areas, being able to contribute and say, this is something that happens every year. Hundreds, thousands of people come, and this is what they do. And how can we further enhance that offer? If we haven't got the hotels in the area, some places have got the hotels, they've got a nice high street, those good connections as well. So I think it's really important that we work with people in their areas to see what else there is on offer that we can build on and try and help and support. Because we will have lost some of those over time, particularly with funding. And then perhaps look at if a small amount of funding was provided, would they be able to continue? Because volunteers are doing most of the work. So that'd be really, really helpful.
Sorry, can I just respond on that? So a lot of what you've just raised there is really useful for us for the cultural strategy, picking that up. The tourism strategy is really about promoting what's going on. The cultural strategy addresses how we make things happen. I totally agree with you about the role of members. We'll make sure that through the consultation, members have an opportunity to respond here, but their vital role will be when we have that rollout of the local delivery plans, and that we work with members in those areas as the leaders in their communities, because hopefully they can help us to engage their residents in this process and to find out what is really important in a particular area. I'd just like to say thank you for the corrections. We'll go back and make those corrections. Also, you raised some really valid points, Councillor Bolt. Not all of those points can be addressed through a tourism strategy, but there are some key points, and maybe there's another forum in which to do that. The whole naming of Kirklees is a political issue. We can't address it through the tourism strategy, but it may be something that you want to pick up again. At least with Kirklees, it's an umbrella term that avoids us from going down the direction of other neighbouring authorities like Wakefield, Bradford, Leeds, where others within their districts feel that they're invisible because it's just been centred on the city. At least with Kirklees, what we're recognising is that those towns and villages, we celebrate their diversity, and that there's equal interest in what they're doing. We're not just promoting one place here. But it is a dilemma that we face, because quite often people are saying, well, where is Kirklees? And that's our first job, is trying to make sure that they're aware of exactly where it is. There are times we have to say, it's Huddersfield, it's Dewsbury, it's Batley, for some people to really locate where that is in the country.
Councillor Bolt.
Thanks, and I appreciate that. But again, I come back, when you mention those places, when you're issuing this document, can we make sure then that Murfield is mentioned as the link to London? It's there. It's the only train station in Kirklees with a direct link to London. Any other area will capitalise, and we should do.
As I said, we will go back now. We'll look at making those kinds of corrections within the document.
Thank you. If there are no other questions or comments, I'd like to thank you all for coming, for attending for the presentation. I'd like to recommend that the principles and objectives of the draft strategy be supported, and the comments made by the committee and Councillor Bolt be taken into account in its further development. Thank you very much. Thank you. Okay, thank you. We're moving on to agenda item 9, the overview and scrutiny work programme for 24-25. Yeah, are there any comments on the work programme? So, as I said previously, we're going to look at providing an opportunity for members of panels to be able to give a verbal update on the work that's been taking place in between meetings going forward. So no reports, just a verbal update, no more than 5 minutes. Councillor Cooper.
So one area, I think I mentioned it earlier, that I think out of the national government things which are going to affect local government is devolution. And obviously one of the things I guess we need to look at is what devolution means for Kirklees. I mean, Are powers coming down to local councils? Are powers going from local councils up to the regional level? And how we engage with the regional level and the different ways of doing that, because it is an ever-changing picture. And we have the devolution white paper that's coming along, and it'd be pretty handy for us to have an understanding as a council about that more widely than the officer level. So I know it might not be within this municipal year, but I think we need to demonstrate that as an organisation we're cognizant of that.
Yep. Are we all happy with that, to take that forward and try and get some further information, advice and guidance on that, so we can bring that here at some stage? Yeah. Any other comments on the work programme? No? Okay. Any other business? So the next meeting is the 4th of April, is that right?
Yeah.
4th of April is next meeting. So thank you all for your attendance and your contributions.